Hello and welcome. Today's day 11 of the 17 days of quantum. September the 11th, and today's topic that I wanted to go through and share is about intuition. But before I do, those of you that are new to this particular space, these 17 days of quantum, they're not 17 days in a row, but there's 17 videos that will eventually be here. It's designed to give you an insight into what the quantum movement is, what it stands for, the nature of what we teach. Our space is about personal governance. It's about developing a structure, an energetic structure that supports the very capacity of what you are. And I like to look at the analogy that a raging torrent, a tsunami, can be very devastating. It'll take its own direction, but when we take that water and the power of it and we provide it with a structure around it, like a river, and we provide strong banks, it allows for a greater amount of flow in a particular direction. And it's the strength of the banks that allows for that flow, and it's a structure that allows for that power to be harnessed, to be supported, to move harmoniously. And for each of us, it's about developing that particular structure within our own self, our own organization. And it's something that's often not recognized when we start to look at enlightenment, when we start to look at understanding and deeper states of our own awareness. The very nature of organization exists around us in our entire environment. And it's divine organization. Energy will seek its highest organization. If you like to see where the most of anything is where it is most organized, where it has the opportunity to express itself without limit. When we can provide a structure to our own self that supports the very significance of what we are, it's then that we start to become powerful. It's not focusing on our skills or our capacities, but the structure that supports it. So today's topic is intuition. And for me, quite simply, intuition is the capacity to interpret energy as information. Now, this is something that is native to us, that we are born with, that we exercise until we get to such a point where we start to learn and become indoctrinated into our own languages, where we start to shape the very nature of our communication around a predetermined set of words and identifiers. We have a capacity to interpret through the original language truth. We have a capacity through our own intuition to start to interpret the environment that exists around us. And more often than not, this vast power that we have, our intuition, is misdirected. It's very rarely used for its intent and its purpose. And that is upon our own self, through our own self. Many of us are not taught that. We never discover it. And we choose to ignore it. Believing in more logical things that we can touch and feel because of our attachment to the five physical senses, those that we've been taught, constructed, indoctrinated with. And it's the very support, the very buying into those five particular senses that causes us to move away from our own intuitive capacity. On the rare occasions when we bring our intuition and we direct it internally, for many of us, we maintain it in short bursts. And it's not because of the power of intuition, but it's in our power to receive the information that comes from activating our intuition. What's very low level, and I suppose as a weak type signal, is when we start to use our intuition around us, into other people's lives, into the environment. We start to see things and feel things, and we can interpret, and sometimes in a quite an insightful way. But the power doesn't exist there because there's no ownership, there's no accountability. The depth of that information comes to us and through us, but there's nothing that requires us to act upon it. It is easily deniable because it is not ours. It's when we start to integrate and when we start to become connected in our own selves that we choose to be receiving of our own intuition. That we start to become subjected to the very nature of that interpretation. What makes intuition powerful is our capacity to act upon it. It's when we start to act upon it and draw upon our intuition that we start to see the strength of it. You see, when we start to receive information, but we don't act upon it, what we're saying in that moment is we don't trust it. And we can create stories, I thought that once upon a time, or I knew that was going to happen. We didn't. We haven't. When we are able to maintain a state of connection, an integrated state where harmoniously our physical and energetic is working together as one in an integrated state where there is no thought and action, it is all one movement. It's a singular movement. It's at that particular time that we start to draw information to support the very nature of what we are and our own elevation of that. Intuition is simply a sense. We are not gifted because we have it. We are not better than others in how we use it. But like in our own life, we can become more skilled. But that comes to our own application, our own development and understanding of it. But for many of us, we ignore it, we turn it off, we deny it, because the information that comes is too significant and too powerful, and we become burdened by it if we don't continue to act. It's as if the drain comes blocked. More information is coming and more information is coming, we become burdened by it and we stop using it and we start focusing it on other people's lives, what they should be doing. We start blaming others. We start getting caught up in how governments, authorities should be doing a better job. Our neighbour, our children's teacher, our partner. The real capacity of intuition at times is very inconvenient. It's not something that enlightens us always. It might give us some insight into a direction to take or a path to follow. But we can all do that. In following our own joy and following our own bliss is a starting point for intuition. But in the very nature of avoiding what is unseen, what is dark, what is sinister within us, bringing our attention to that is where intuition starts to truly liberate us. It's to be able to see the inconvenient. It's not moving away from those things that are considered to be negative, toxic. It's about understanding how to navigate past them, because the more and more that we deny, the more and more we avoid these things, the more that they will fester within us. The very nature of an infinite capacity is not to be absent to all of these things that we see as degenerative. We see as, not enjoyable, beneficial, or enlightening of our own life. It's our ability to be able to be ourselves in the face of everything that exists in all frequencies in our entire existence. They are not only of a good nature, they are not of a bad nature, they are of their own. And it's our interaction with them through our understanding and interpretation of them, through our capacity to be able to interpret energy and then therefore at a much more specific state, frequencies. When we are in our ego, our intuition is directed outwardly and it becomes a source of our information. The outside world, what people think, what they judge, how they feel about us. We are precise in our understanding of that and we become very limited in that. And because we're looking at outside as the authority in our life, that becomes the very measurement of our own life. It's when we start to bring that intuition internally that we start to hear of our own brilliance. We start to see of our own light, our own truth. But for some of us, that's an abstract story and one that's very difficult to accept. So we go back to the familiarity of how people judge us, what we've been learnt to be in the face of others, in the interpretation of others, and we come to accept ourselves in the minimal nature that we are. Our intuition can liberate us from seeing these deceits, but it's our ability to act upon those without question, but through authority and through understanding, which allows us to find our own truth. Our intuition can allow us to communicate with anything in existence that we can see and what we cannot see. It is not just a good idea to develop your intuition, it is essential. It is incumbent upon each of us if we want to move into a place where we want to create beyond what other people have. If we want to stop complaining about what other people have done to us, if we want to move out of being a victim and allow ourselves to see the very inconveniences that we've created in our life and be able to take responsibility for them in such a way that we could learn to navigate them, that we could ask in any moment, how do I move forward from here? What would be the direction? What am I? What is this? What is its relationship to me? How is this of service to me at this particular time? The pain I'm experiencing, what is it? What's created it? How do I move beyond it? The capacity that we have to ask any question, to remove ourselves from any authority, any expert that exists outside of ourselves that we've supplanted in our lives, ahead of this particular capacity to be able to interpret anything and everything in its own truth through our ability to receive it. Intuition is simply the conduit. It doesn't need to be elevated. It is not significant. You are significant, and it is simply a part of you. To learn to understand it and master it, that is the key. Intuition to me is a very significant part of what we start to become as we start to recognize ourselves and as we can start to purge in our life and let go of the toxicity that has created the identity of what we are. As we've taken on other people's energies, as we've morphed ourselves into a way of being accepted, shaped by our environment, a product of it, that we start to speak, mimic those people around us that we've come to like and have supposedly come to like us. Our particular capacity to express ourselves, as we start to recognize and bring attention to ourselves, our intuition starts to become directed to us as we start to believe in ourselves more, as we start to want to discover ourselves. We start to become more intuitive only because we direct this great sense, this noble sense towards us. And as we develop a greater level of strength and resilience, we maintain the direction of that attention upon ourselves for a longer period of time until we find answers that inspire us, that enlighten us, that drive us forward rather than elements of it, rather than aspects of it, rather than hearsay, rather than guttural type feelings that determine a direction in our life, which is basically moving through this great existence blind. Move beyond the need to trust your gut. Come to a point where you can discern in absolute specifics of words, of insight, of the interpretation of frequency. Understand your very existence as you start to master and come to master your intuition by your ability to receive, maintain, and act upon the information that is readily and patiently available to you in each and every moment. For me, the greatest experience that I've had with intuition was with my son before he could speak, before he could communicate, was to be able to communicate so significantly, so deliberately. It is one of the things that stimulated my adventure into this particular part of this life, the undeniable connection that was created. I believe for a parent to be able to have that, to be able to move beyond what a child is telling them, but to be able to understand the very nature of their expression in each and every moment and be able to support that, be able to enliven that, be able to elevate that, is an existence that I'm very humbled by. I would suggest to you, when it comes to intuition, come to discover what it is for you. Ask yourself, what is intuition? Write it down, define it, can you? What is your relationship with it? How could you develop it in a much more significant way? And if you did, what would your experience be? Start to look at yourself when you start to question, and if you could just ask a question and allow yourself to listen to the answer in every moment of your life. Start to see the impact that you could start to have. Start to see where you acquiesce and let go of your ability to be able to determine and interpret your own life. There's much to discover within intuition as an entirety of your existence that unfolds at the mastery of your own intuition. This is day 11 of the 17 days of quantum. Until we meet again on the inside, enjoy you.